Hello, all BeholdBeGold followers. Today we have a special guest. Her name is Katie. Hi, Katie.
Hi.
Welcome to BeholdBeGold, a voice for childhood cancer and late effects. So, Katie, why don't you tell us about the age you had cancer and your current age, and why don't you tell us about also the type of cancer that you underwent?
Well, I just turned 15 and I was diagnosed with stage 4 Burkitt's lymphoma when I was 2. So a long time ago. It was in my brain fluid, in my central nerve system. It was so fast and aggressive that the treatment was only about 4 months of chemotherapy, because it's either you start running full speed or else you don't make it out. So in a way, I was lucky that it wasn't stretched out, like long breaks in between chemo, so I had to redo it again. It was attack full mode, everything, lived in the hospital, had to just basically no other life besides being in the hospital. And that's the same situation for a lot of kids. But I was very lucky that it was very short and they attacked it when they could. It's rare for anyone at this point. It's really only mainly found in Africa, actually.
Wow.
Even more rare for children.
You know your story now because of course your caregivers have told you about it. And so walk us through kind of like your that day, your symptoms.
So it was actually Mother's Day, which probably wasn't the best day. I had a nosebleed that wouldn't stop. It went for about 6 hours. We did the whole routine. We went to pediatrician. They said, go to this place. I ended up at the hospital. And I stayed there for about 5 days until they told me that I had cancer. And that was a lot because we were just there maybe for a virus. You never know what a nosebleed can come to.
Yeah.
It's not, everyone gets nosebleeds. But it just would not stop, and we never really imagined that it would come to that being cancer.
Of course, that's no news. A parent, or specifically a mother,
Yeah.
on Mother's Day, anybody, of course. Wow, just like you said, you don't expect like a nosebleed, but you said it was ongoing.
And that was scary because you lose your platelets. That's how they found out, because my platelet levels were so low. Because nosebleeds last for about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
If you're lucky. 6 hours, you kind of knew something was wrong. I'm lucky that it wouldn't stop, so I could go to the doctor, I could get the test, they could tell me what was wrong, but it came out of nowhere. After the nosebleed, I started getting almost like cold-like symptoms, and they thought maybe she's just getting a cold, maybe that's what was starting it, but they somehow came to the conclusion of it being cancer through a spinal tap. And that's why it was really scary, because to hear that you have a healthy child, everything's fine, and then a few days later you hear they have stage 4 cancer without being sick, without having any symptoms, that's just, it's nowhere. It comes out of nowhere. It's scary. And it's one thing to hear your child has cancer, but having stage 4, and my parents still talk to me about it, and they didn't believe it, because how could someone who wasn't sick be sick with stage 4 cancer?
So Katie, wow, so time has gone by now. You are 15 years old. What type of late effects have you faced afterwards?
I have had really low bone density because chemotherapy is designed to attack the body. So it was hard for me to walk after that, because it makes you so weak. And that's actually why I went into gymnastics. I was a competitive gymnast, because it builds strength. But unfortunately, I have broken my back twice because of the low bone density, and especially because that's where all my injections were. They're in my lower back, because that was where it really was. That was the main area where the cancer was. So because of that, we've had some back problems. I have had some, pretty much almost all survivors, I have some learning comprehension issues, just maybe needing to take a few more minutes on a test, or asking for extra help, just because chemotherapy, it was in my central nerve system, which can affect the neurons in your brain. So at first I was really not ashamed, but I was embarrassed to use it, because what are my friends going to think when I was sitting in my classroom when they all went to lunch, because they don't know that having cancer, having chemotherapy can still affect you 11 years later. So that's one of the main ones, late effects that I have experienced.
Obviously, we're focused on just recuperation, which is great. You know, we don't want to scare everybody right away saying like, oh, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. No, yeah. There should be a book, a handy dandy notebook, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Where we get to read about all these late effects, you know, or resources, right? So we want to keep that in mind as we get older, that we have these available to us, because like you mentioned, you were a child, you were 2 years old. So all your information, perhaps your family knows it, and maybe some stuff your family has missed out on telling you about it. So that's why it's important for us to do our research, and advocate for ourselves, right? As we get going through school, like you mentioned, we have cognitive issues. Many childhood cancer survivors do, and it's important to let those professors and those teachers know that yeah, we go through these issues. However, it doesn't mean we can't do what others can do, right? We just need a little bit more time, like you mentioned. I also needed a lot of time. I know other people I've talked to about late effects. They also have been needing more time, perhaps on a test, perhaps on maybe job duties that they need to do. And people, you know, we're doing this for people to be aware of it, because it's not that we can't do it, it's just that we might need a little extra time on it.
It's hard to say to certain people, because if you say to your boss, I'm having these late effects, I might not be able to have this done by this certain date, they're going to think, so you have cancer. They don't understand that you could be in remission and still have late effects. And that's what's really frustrating for me, especially because be in remission, but you can also have late effects. And we're lucky enough to have the late effects because we survived, but it's also, there's a certain price. Yep. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, and there are certain types of chemotherapy that can cause this or that. They really don't know what you're gonna get. So I have had to go to so many doctor's appointments over the past decade, and it's not the fact that you have to go and you have to get blood drawn, that's fine, but missing out on things because of those doctor's appointments. Like, I remember I was really upset in 3rd grade because I had to miss the class Christmas party because I had to go to my late effects clinic. But now being more mature, I've had to have 48 hours EEGs on my brain to make sure that it's not something that we need even more help on, if that makes sense. It's testing. I'll do it once every 4 years so they can compare, but you walk around, I still have to go to school, walk around with a bunch of neurons on your face and a wrap around to make sure it doesn't fall off. And obviously everyone was looking at it, but that's something that has affected me, and a lot of people now know about what was wrong, about what still happens. I've had to have the heart monitors on while I work out on my team, and I have to ask what's wrong, and I don't really want to share that part of my life with so many people. I was going to a new team this year, and I had to re-explain everything to everyone, and they're just asking. They also treat you differently after. They kind of treat you with kid gloves, and that's also a little bit annoying, because I see it as like a badge of honor that like you still get to do these things. You just have to have a few tests every once in a while, which is fine. And then my late effects have also affected me by being placed in a different group at school for testing. And I shouldn't be embarrassed really, but I am. It's like when you're younger, you're taken out of the group. And all your friends are like, why are you doing that? Like, you want to be with your friends, but you're sorry, I have to go with this group. And you have to explain why. It's just, I'm trying to think the right ways to put it, but it just makes you feel like the odd one out, and you don't want to feel that way. And they all go back to class after the test, but you're there for another hour because of the learning, the 504s that you have. So that's another thing. And the last one, like we already talked, anxiety about illnesses. Like for me, it's chickenpox. You can see my school file, it'll say, notify parents if chickenpox are in the school, because that's my Achilles heel. They don't know what happens if I get it. The vaccine didn't work. They don't know how strongly my immune system can fight against it. So that's why it's terrifying. So that's why my parents want to keep me home. which makes sense. I wouldn't really tell anyone, and now I'm advocating, I'm speaking at CareFest, because I realized it's not something to be embarrassed about, it's something
You should be proud of.
about, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to talk about. It's hard to get comfortable talking about it to a bunch of people.
It is. And then I had to start thinking like, okay, well, this is actually my story that one day is gonna like change people's lives, right? So this literally, you're 15 and you're sharing this with a lot of people. That's very brave of you. And I know that some other 15-year-old person, young adult, young teenager, one day is gonna be very thankful for this resource. So Katie, right now, what this opportunity that you have with us on Behold Begold today, what do you want viewers out there to know about late effects?
I want viewers to know that it's not something that should be quiet about. It's something that is still going on even after you've been in remission.
What people can do to contribute to childhood cancer, survivors who have late effects, what can they do?
They can raise awareness. It's not something you hear about in the news every day. It happens to someone you love or care about or someone in your community. I've seen communities come together, rise up when a child gets sick, but before then, they didn't ignore it, but it just wasn't affecting them. So they don't see the 91,000 families of kids who unfortunately pass away that year. They don't see that because it's not happening to someone around them, and that's really sad. But there are some people who advocate just out of the kindness of their heart. They see a sick child, they think there's something I can do about it. It's not like there's this whole disease that everyone's terrified of, no one can fix. It's because there's no awareness. It's only 4% of the government funds. We can do so much better, and we have since in the past decade, but we can keep getting better. We got the Creating Hope Act passed, which was a really big deal, but now we need it to be reauthorized. It's not a certain point where you can stop and say, oh, look, we've raised this much money, we can go party, do whatever we want, It's something that's always going to be there and that you have to fight to keep alive.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that Creating Hope Act since you mentioned it?
Yeah. All right. So the Creating Hope Act gives pharmaceutical companies an incentive to create childhood cancer drugs because most pharmaceutical companies create adult cancer drugs because that's what brings in the most money for them. But unfortunately, we're giving these drugs to the kids, and that they're obviously not made for kids. They're harming them. It's putting them in more hospitals, more rounds of chemotherapy because they're not made for childhood cancers, because there is a difference between the two. And it was passed in 2012, and it was really good. It created more drugs. It was working, and we need it to be reauthorized this year. They need to contact local offices, which is this is how I met Juanita. We lobbied on Capitol Hill together. But even the smallest thing, like you can create a petition on Instagram or something and have signed and be like, these are signatures for a petition to reauthorize Creating Hope Act. We've been sending letters out to family, friends, coworkers to say this act needs more attention so it can be reauthorized.
A lot of awareness, a lot of support, definitely a lot of support for the Creating Hope Act. Me and Katie, like she mentioned, we met during this, and it was very a unique experience, right? I thought it was my first time lobbying with the Kids First Breast Cancer, and it really is a unique experience and a really good act for a lot of awareness and a lot of support. Katie, Behold Begold is about resiliency and positivity, even though we have faced these late effects, even though we are undergoing these late effects. So please share with us something positive that has come through your life despite of these late effects.
I have been able to live my life, and I'm really thankful for that. Anything else is just bonus points, honestly. But I'm able to see my sister graduate from high school next year, going into college. I'm able to see my family get a dog, which we thought would never happen. It's just the little things in life. You're able to go to high school. You're able to have a significant other. Anything that is happening is just amazing. It gives you a new perspective. Even just looking outside, I like my neighborhood. Like, I live in this amazing house, It's really just a gift And if you have, say you have a bad day at practice or something, I take a deep breath and I say, at least I can go to practice. There's nothing holding me back at this point. You get to look forward, you get to apply to college, you get to get your first job, your first house, your first kid, get married, you know, maybe not in that order, but anything is just amazing considering where we came from. So
yeah, definitely. And so you said that you get to go to practice. Is that swim practice?
Dive. It's the same thing. Diving is up the
dive. Sorry. I know that I always see on Instagram like a pool and you like taking pictures of like awesome pools and you competing. So you've been to competitions and stuff?
Yeah, I've been able to go to Florida, San Antonio, Texas, New York. It's amazing to travel to do something you love. And I'm thankful that I can do that.
Exactly. Yeah, that definitely, you know, is Behold Begold, just doing stuff that you thought you never would be able to do, and that you're actually like, yeah, you're actually doing it, and you're, after everything that you went through, and after what you're going through now with late effects, you're able to still be resilient and still be able to, yeah, like I tell everybody, conquer the world and be your awesome Katie self, right? So I know you do a lot of advocacy, a lot of support for childhood cancer since you were a little itty tiny toddler. Tell me about organizations that you support.
So speaking of itty bitty kids, since I was about 7, I've been with Mike Gillette, who is a very big childhood cancer advocate. Dance Hope Cure is all about his work. The Truth 365 is a documentary about childhood cancer.
Right? I've seen it.
Yeah, that was me, little itty bitty me. That was the first thing I did. And I've been working with Mike since then, so about 8 years now. And I've been doing speaking at public schools, which was a little nerve-wracking. But I've done the photo shoots, I've done the behind the scenes, the internship, and he organizes a little something called Cure Fest. Cure Fest is in Washington, D.C., and it's obviously in September for Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. And it's basically a celebration of life and how far we've come. Mm-hmm. So a main part of the Truth 365 is Dance Hope Cure, because dancing can cure your mood, it can explain how you're feeling, you can explain it through movements. So all day there's live music, there's dance performances, but my favorite thing about Cure Fest is that it's brought me together with other cancer survivors. Mm-hmm. This past September, I spoke with Taylor Love, who's a very big advocate, Reed Morgan, and Skylar Smith. These are all kids who live in my area. And I didn't exactly know who they were before, but they brought us together and now we keep in touch. So it's a nice little reunion every Cure Fest when you get to see the people, you get to see how they've grown, but you also, with Cure Fest, honor the people who you've lost. And I think that's really important, to be in such a big city and say, look how many people are here, look how many people this has affected.
Yeah.
And the night before the actual event, there's a candle lighting in front of the White House, saying, look, we've lost these people for each candle we're holding, and look, give us more money for the research. And this year was actually really special because this September is the first time the White House has been lit for childhood cancer. It was lit in gold.
It's so awesome. Yeah.
That I saw that on my phone. I was like, this can't be happening. It was amazing to see that just 5 years ago, Cure Fest was about this big, you know, nothing that was, I don't know how to explain it, but it wasn't nothing, but it was a small thing, and look how big it's grown.
People who get you, right? It's like your community. And it's not just 1, 2, 3, 50 people. It's so many people that come, and it's just incredible to see how everyone is impacted by childhood cancer. And you know that it's not just you, that you're not alone.
Yeah, it's hard to put in words the experience when you're there. You look around, you see that person understands what I've been through. And it's also a reason to be thankful, because you go around, there's a big wall of survivors, but next to it there's a big wall of those we've lost.
Yeah.
You see it, the numbers of who we've lost is greater. So it lets you take in for a moment and be like,
wow,
not anything is this, like if you fail a test, you're like, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
And you walk around, you see the booths of the advocacy teams, and some of the people lost their child, but they're still advocating.
Yeah.
They're trying to help other children, and that's really inspiring to me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a great feeling to be there and to hear other people's stories and watch how people who haven't even been affected donate their time to dance in front of little kids to make them happy. They will fly down from Chicago. One of the families I know fly down from Chicago every single year to be there. And actually one of my nurses, they're very involved with CareFest as well. She moved to Europe this past year. She flew back for CareFest. And I thought that was amazing. She flew back for all of September because it's a really big deal for our community. And obviously you can't come home every 2 weeks from Europe. And she chose that month specifically because of how much it means to her. And she wants to be with the people who, like her patients and people she's known for a long time and they've been through unthinkable things with. And that was really heartwarming to see her there. Like, it's just, I don't want to sound weird, but it's almost magical.
It really is. It's magical. That's the key word. CareFest is magical. If you want to get to know more about CareFest, just obviously, CareFest, just type it in Google and it appears there, and hashtag CareFest, anything. I really encourage everybody out there to support CareFest. These are all individuals who have been impacted some way, somehow by childhood cancer. And really, there's a lot the community can do to help. Katie, can I see your CareFest shirt? Woo! Shout out from Katie over here. Katie, thank you so much for being with us today here on Behold Be Gold. Is there anything else you want to say?
Behold be gold!
Get your smiling face on here. Hello, Insta followers. What's up? Okay.
More rarer. That's just not grammatically correct.